How many of you have tried the Mod Podge glitter? If you have, give me a paintbrush down in the comments. We're having an interactive video today. Now, I wanted to get a little bit extra, y'all, and I busted out a deck of cards. My daughter collects card decks, and this is her least favorite, so we're gonna DIY it a few cards at a time. I've decoupaged cardstock many times, and this really isn't that different, but I haven't decoupaged a card deck, and I'm gonna start just decoupaging random things I haven't decoupaged yet because why not? And besides, glitter doesn't really go on everything, so I thought it would go really good on the back of these cards with my pretty rice paper. Now, if y'all have never handled a deck of cards before, they're gloss, they're silky. We need to prep them up, and we're going to do that by using my multi-surface. No lie, y'all, this stuff is great for prepping things, but for real, it's crappy at covering up designs. It took me 5 coats. When each one of these cards on the front and the back, I was cranky to say the least. But the actual takeaway from this is, people, these turned out so cute. I'm definitely going to be doing more cards. I love how these turned out. I wanted to use rice paper, and I would even recommend regular paper because this is cardstock and it's thicker, okay? So the thicker we're decoupaging a piece on here, the better you're going to have a connection, at least in my experience. You can absolutely do a napkin or tissue paper. I just feel like having something thicker on top of something thicker, especially with something like this, it was the best decision I made. And I just took the cards and trimmed out little sections down to size to fit on top of the card. And then I just used some good old Mod Podge. Now, y'all, if I was doing this on furniture or using this on an upcycle piece, normally I use a lot of Mod Podge, and I'll even like wet the cardstock piece, especially if they're matte. This way it helps absorb and it helps attach to the wood or whatever we're upcycling. This is entirely different. I don't necessarily recommend spraying down your cardstock. Just a little bit of, and if you want to do a little spritz on your rice paper, you know, before you connect it to your card, then go right ahead. It's really not going to hurt anything, but you don't need to oversaturate it. All right, I did the same thing for the center, and I cut a big enough section out to cover up where we painted, and I'm just gonna pop some florals on here, use the same Mod Podge, and apply it down. And if I'm being honest, y'all, these turned out so cute without the Mod Podge glitter. I was almost sad to put it on here because I didn't want to mess them up. You know what I mean? Whenever you're trying something new, you just don't know if it's about to make things worse or better. But seriously, y'all, look at them. Look how cute they are. Anyhow, seriously, this stuff was really easy to use. And as soon as I opened it, I could tell that there was so much pizzazz going on in this jar. It's hard for y'all to see it, but I tried putting just a little dollop that I had gotten on my finger while I was opening it on my skin, just for y'all to see how glittery that was, just in that little teeny tiny swipe. Again, super easy. You just apply it like regular Mod Podge and then let it dry. And I did for 30 minutes, just like the bottle recommended. When I came back, it looked like this. And y'all know I had to put another coat on it, right? Because even though it's glittery, we needed a little bit more, because why not? Realistically, if we're doing it, we might as well go all the way. And people, I love this stuff. Not just because it's super glittery and it seals well, but also, y'all didn't think, I know if you're watching at home, you're asking yourself, but does it rub off? Because I had these questions, and your girl's here to deliver, like always. So first I did the finger test, and nothing. Then I did the whole rub down test, and nothing. This stuff held up so well. And I staged them in one of my little cabinet displays that I have off to the side of my staging area. How flippin' cute do these look, just sitting on a teeny tiny shelf. They add just a little bit of something in there. You can really see that glitter popping on the backs of those cards, especially the one behind the rose. I love that Dollar Tree has started carrying these. These are actual ceramic trays without any finish over them. They're extremely unfinished. And what do I mean by unfinished? They're basically gonna soak up anything that you put on there if you don't use the right paints and prep these right, depending on what you're trying to recreate. So as you can see here, you can spray them with water over and over and over again, and it just absorbs right in there. And they'll do the same thing with acrylic paint as well. Whereas a finished piece of ceramic, if you spray something on top or you use acrylic paint, it will not completely absorb in immediately, okay? Or if you have a finished piece that you DIY'd that is sealed properly, that will also have the same effect. I want to create a mica powder paint on top of this piece, and to do that we're going to prep it using multi-surface paint. This is one of my favorites for ceramic, and often in my content I share this technique using glass. Here's an example of mica powder paint with an ombre effect with 3 different colors transitioning into the glass piece from Dollar Tree. Now I love sharing how to do this, and I have not shared how to do this on top of ceramic, so here we go. For the mica powder paint, we're just going to be mixing mica powder and Mod Podge. Using the multi-surface is a great base for me to be able to paint on top of. You'll notice that I did spray this with some water, and I made sure to get the water on top of the multi-surface to help me move the paint around and use less product. If you're going to just spray the water on the ceramic, that's not going to work out so well. Do keep in mind that this stuff is not self-leveling, so be purposeful with your brush strokes because there are minimal streaks, okay? Allow this to dry completely and then bring on in your Mod Podge. And then grab you some mica powder paint. Now, before y'all start asking, because I know I'm gonna have some people in the comments, I do not use any particular brand. I grab whatever is the cheapest off Amazon. To start off, I just started squeezing out some Mod Podge, and I noticed it was struggling and then realized it had extras. For real? For real? Oh my God. Why? The whole bottle needs to go in the trash. That might have been the biggest Mod Podge booger I've seen in my entire life. The girth in that thing was, whew, and that was a new bottle. I'm gagging. I had to redo this voiceover several times. Anyhow, I tapped a little bit of mica powder. Now, the more mica powder you use, the more color you will have. I wanted this to have a very pastel pink color, so I used that white mica powder paint to mix in with this pink, and I really love the shade we got. And just a reminder, wear your PPE, people. If you're going to work with mica powder paint, it's a good idea to have on a mask and something to protect your eyes, okay? For our application, I'm just going to use a pouncer and put a little bit on there and tap all over our tray. This stuff dries really quick, okay? So you're going to want to work fast, especially if you've mixed up a pile. It will also dry. It'll start drying from the outside and work its way on in. And I usually do 2 to 3 layers to make sure everything is covered, especially if I'm working on glass. Now, ceramic doesn't really have to, or wood if you're using wood, it doesn't really have to be as many layers. That seems to, with a base underneath, come out really pigmented with just 1 layer, as long as you have that base underneath of there. But glass, I usually do 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5, and maybe even 6 or 7. I'm just kidding. I had to. Okay. Sorry. I've never done 6 or 7 coats of paint, but I did do 2 on this one, and I was super happy with how that came out. You can leave it plain, but I grabbed my TDS Creative stencil piece and cut a little section out. My stencil sets have a lot of little designs to choose from, and I just grabbed one, put it on here with my hand. If you want to use painter's tape to hold yours down, you can. I did not, and I just tapped right on top of this with a pouncer. Apply your stencils however you would like. When I was all done, I did kind of grab the tray and hold it up against the wall with the light reflecting in the back so you guys could get a really nice view of that beautiful shimmer. The cool thing about this is you do not have to seal over it if you choose not to. Now, adding the stencil in there, you would want to put a little layer of something over top of the stencil section. Other than that, the mica powder is really sealed in there with that Mod Podge. Let me know in the comments below if you're gonna try this hack. I was not really sure what to expect from this Mod Podge texture coat. In my mind, I was thinking, is this going to be thick and clumpy? But then I got to reading the directions and I got some other ideas. We're going to be using this large canvas from Dollar Tree for this project, and then we're going to be taking our Decoupage tissue paper scraps. Now, these are all from my own personal brand, TDS Creative. You can use whatever you want. I'm asked often, what do I do with my scraps? I save them, people, but here's an idea. If you don't know what to do with yours, you can create a mixed media art piece. Now, you don't have to do the extra that I'm going to put on top of here, but realistically, you can just take your scraps, and another cool idea would be to do this on a ceramic piece as well. If you got scraps, you know what I'm saying, put them on down. Now, for just the decoupage, I'm using one of my TDS Creative fan brushes and just some good old Mod Podge and laying the stuff down. The cool thing about my tissue paper is you can actually paint it too. So in the sections that you want it to lay over it, you could paint it so this way you don't have the back shine through. But I actually wanted that look on here. You do you with whatever you're creating, but I just want to let you know that if you wanted to paint over the tissue paper, you absolutely can. Let that dry and then apply it, and it will hide whatever you have through the back that will be translucent normally. Now at this point, I still hadn't opened that bottle yet, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I know that it says it works with fabric and things like that, and I am a doily collector, y'all. I collect doilies, I sell them or whatnot, and I keep a bunch of them, and I just wanted something really cool and different to do with them. So I thought, let's take a doily and use this texture coat and see what happens, right? Especially because it says you can create dimension with the fabric or twine or whatever you're using. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go grab a doily. So I opened this sucker up and I poured what I thought was a reasonable amount in here. I'm no noob when it comes to DIYing with fabric and material and lace and twine and all that stuff. So little shocked once I got the doily in here, and I still ended up having to add more. You'll see that the doily's in the shape of a strawberry, y'all. Did you see it? I didn't really hold it up as well as I could have, but you guys will see it once I get it all out of there. Now, y'all, this texture coat soaked right on up into this doily, and there wasn't any excess, and I was a little bit nervous because a lot of times when I do this type of project, I make sure that it is soaking wet, and it'd be wet enough that the piece is actually heavy. So you have to kind of form it on top of something. I'll use like parchment paper or whatever and settle it some which way and allow it to dry. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days. So I was a little shocked when all of that liquid got soaked up in here, and then it kind of just started forming as I was attaching it. Now you'll see here in a second, I left the voice on so you guys could hear the background noise. You're going to hear my hands actually pulling up from the piece because it's already sticking down as soon as I attached it. I was kind of impressed. It really allowed me to form this as the piece was laying on the canvas. I even left the bottom stick out a little bit and the top stick out a little bit so that they would dry, giving it more of a 3D appearance. And I have to tell you, I am in love with this. I am absolutely going to be doing this more often. I love this whole doily thing. I'm a doily lover, y'all, and this might be one of my new favorite DIY projects to make. Take this information and remix it using any type of ceramic piece. For our demonstration purposes here in the video, we're going to be using this one I picked up from Walmart. Ceramic is porous, people, so you're going to always want to put a base coat on here. For this project, I just used some good old multi-surface. You could absolutely use chalk paint, or you could put a whole layer of Mod Podge or liquid patina, whatever medium you would like, all over your piece. But definitely put a base layer because it's so porous, it's going to sop up everything. I wouldn't recommend using just a plain acrylic paint. It's going to absorb that. Acrylic paint is perfect for painting ceramics. It's not perfect for a base layer, so please keep that in mind. As you're applying your pieces, if there's grooves, a little piece of cling wrap will go a long way. And you may need to rotate this out if you notice your cling wrap is getting sticky or hard as the medium's drying on it, which is completely fine. But if your ceramic has little grooves in there and you're trying to get into the details with your material, this is perfect. Just be sure to not be using a whole lot of medium. You do not need a ton of medium to accomplish a look like this. And then pick whatever sealer you would like. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Some good old Mod Podge will do the trick. I was sent this awesome wood coaster set from my good friend Tracy's Crafty Creations. We're going to be decoupaging this using just one napkin. Now, for anyone interested, I did want to share that this set came from Hobby Lobby. And to start off, we're going to be using some dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Now, people, I'm telling on myself right here, but take note to how many coasters you see me putting out and then how many I finished with, okay? I'm nothing around here if not transparent. We're going to take some of this dishwasher safe Mod Podge and put a nice thick juicy layer on all of our coasters and allow this to dry for anywhere between 3 and 4 hours. Now, depending on how thick your coat is, you might have to wait a little bit longer. And I know some of y'all have no patience and want to bust out that heat gun, but I really feel like the overall application and the finished product just turns out better if you let it happen naturally. Now let me tell y'all what happened, because I know you see me just putting the 5 coasters on this napkin. So I didn't realize until I put these all in here that there was a gap. And I remember when I took these out that there wasn't a gap. And as these were drying, I set them all in front of me right here. Or so I thought. I mean, as crafters do, we kind of put stuff places and somehow it ends up over there and we completely forget it even exists. And that's what happened. And for anyone thinking that the coasters, I could have just added it in right there, they were already finished. I had them turned around so you couldn't see. Now, I'm showing you this because these are my favorite napkin brands currently for anyone interested in what. Of all the napkin brands I've used, this Mica Designs, they're my absolute favorite for now, okay? And before I get spammed in the comments, like, where did I get the napkins and this and that? Most of these are sent to me from subscribers. I don't know where they came from. Once I removed the sneaky layers from the napkin, it was time to bring on in our iron. Now, you can use any iron for this. I just keep this little joint next to my craft station and I turn it all the way up. While that's cooling off, I grabbed a piece of parchment paper, not wax paper, parchment paper. And I get asked often, does it matter shiny side, downside? People, I iron with whatever side. I don't discriminate on shiny or matte. Like, we just place it on there and pray it all works out. It usually does. I haven't did this a time where I felt, oh, I should have used the shiny side. It usually just it works. A good tip to remember if you're doing multiple items underneath one napkin is to start that iron-on method with the sections where the pieces are attaching to one another, so you get that melted bond going on underneath of there, and then go back and do your individual iron section. I took about a minute ironing each piece individually, and then I took my scissors and just cut everything down that wasn't attached and gingerly pulled the rest of the sections off. Then it was time to bring on in the finger sander and give these a nice little sanding. A good tip whenever you're sanding decoupage is, instead of going side to side, go up and down. This will give you a nice clean break. In the event if something didn't attach on the ends, you don't have to worry about any bunching or fraying. If you wanted to paint these, you could absolutely do that, but I feel like certain napkins just look amazing on natural wood. These turned out so good we're going to just take some of this and apply a nice thin layer. This stuff is indoor outdoor and it's non-toxic, and I really love how it is not sticky, or you can see like an overlay of it once it's completely dry. And in case anyone's wondering what that looks like, this is the dishwasher safe Mod Podge, and you can usually see that shine and some streaks. But I do love that stuff as well, so keep that in mind. I don't really have a favorite over these two so far. They're working out for me. It just depends on what finish I'm going for, and that's what one I go with. We're going to be taking this Mod Podge Crackle and putting it all over this large piece we're going to upcycle. Now I got zero intentions of using that little sponge, but I did want to read the directions first. And y'all, a couple takeaways from this, just starting off, okay? One, you're going to apply this as a top coat. That means we're going to DIY whatever we're going to DIY, and then we're going to put this all over the piece. Got it. Next, we're going to let that dry for an hour, and I'm not going to heat gun it. I'm going to let it dry naturally. Then we should see some cracks. We're going to take some thin layers of paint and then wipe it back. Okay, got it. All right, now let's get started with our upcycle. See this pretty? I don't remember if I got this from an estate sale or Goodwill. It's been in my stash for quite some time. I wanted to wait for the perfect decoupage tissue paper design, and I feel like I finally created it. Sometimes it takes me some months to create what I feel like is perfect to fit on a piece I have hoarded in my stash. Next, I just trimmed down the piece and I frayed around the outside edges just to make sure that the piece was easier to blend in. At the current time that I was creating this, I didn't really have a plan. You're kind of watching this unfold, and I have never used this Crackle stuff before, so I didn't know what to expect either. I just knew I wanted to do something large enough that I could use different things to test this on. And first, we're going to apply a layer of regular Mod Podge on here with my TDS Creative 3-inch brush, and allow this to dry so we can do the iron-on method to this decoupage tissue paper. I then set this to the side and allowed it to dry for about 4 hours, and then it was time to bring on in the iron. Now you can use whatever iron you would like for your iron-on method. I'd usually just have this one. It's my little craft joint sitting along the side of me. You do not have to have this exact one, and I do turn the temperature all the way up on it. Next, you're going to need a piece of parchment paper. I'm just tearing off a little section. I usually don't use one to cover the whole project because I just move that sucker along with the decoupage, but you guys do you. Okay, do you. I like to start from one side to the next and work my way all the way across whatever I'm doing the iron-on method to. You feel free to iron on however you would like. And people, spend about 5 minutes doing it, okay? Make sure that sucker is on there. Now, once I was happy with it, I went and grabbed some molds. And I have never used IOD's clay mold stuff before. This was sent to me from Stella Rose Mercantile. She sent me a nice big old box of stuff to try out. This is my first time. I'm actually out of my favorite clay. Okay, full disclosure, because if I had it, I would have used it. I like paper clay. It's been weird lately. It's been a little wonky. I don't know why it's been a little bit crumbly with some of the newer ones I've gotten, but usually it's buttery smooth and it works amazing and it sticks to everything well once I glue it down, and I don't have any shrinking or cracking issues. However, you know, we are trying this out today, and boy, y'all, these molds are deep. And when I tell you that my hands, it took me over 2 hours to put this frame on this piece. I was a little taken away by the work and effort that I put in to just framing it. In my mind, I'm like, this is supposed to be a Mod Podge project, and I got real carried away. Like, I squirreled so hard. I was like, we're just making a beautiful decoupage piece. I used some Type-On Quick and Thick to attach everything, and then I allowed this to dry overnight for 24 hours. I then painted our frame area, edge up, accents, whatever you want to call them, and then let them dry and brought on in the Crackle. Okay, it was finally time to crackle. Now, y'all, I spent a minute reading these directions. One direction I didn't see was shake well, because the first squirt, y'all, it was liquidy. I was like, oh no. Oh no. So I hurried up and shook it, and then sure enough, it came out thicker. I was like, the damage is done at this point. It's on my project. I didn't want to try wiping it up, and decisions were made. Okay. So I just, at this point, did my best smearing it all over the place, and I was so sad. Past me wishes I would have wiped it off and started again, so it didn't get like this. But future me is happy that it happened, because I learned some things. And I'm about to share with you some of those things that I learned for you to be able to utilize them in your future projects. Now, I let this dry for a couple hours, and it said just one, but I had too much Mod Podge on there to have faith. And what I noticed is what was on top of the rice paper, it was flaky. Especially in the section, like it didn't apply like a regular top coat Mod Podge, right? But I still wanted to try and follow the directions as closely as possible, since I made the mistake and took some paint and went over it in sections. And I'm showing you some stills here because I feel like that's better than the video. Once I wiped the paint back, you could see that there were cracking spots, especially in the sections that I used a lot of this Crackle medium. So one, it works on top of the molds. Two, it really shows up when it is piled on top of one another, in spite of the directions saying thin coat. And three, it did work over top the rice paper where I put the thin coats at in certain sections. They were just really teeny tiny cracks. While this didn't turn out like I wanted it, I had to save it. So I grabbed some of my Dixie Belle gold gilding wax and put a nice layer all over the piece. You can really see the fine crackle around the edge where the molds are, and you can really see the deep crackle inside the molds where I put a lot of the crackle. There's hardly any at all over top of the rice paper, but I'm assuming that's because I was going back and forth over the piece, and it was an operator error thing due to me having way too much fall out of the bottle initially. I feel like we're going to revisit this Crackle medium again at a later date. For now, my verdict's still out on this one, but I feel like the project turned out beautiful anyway. If you're looking for more Mod Podge hack DIYs, check out this video right here. And head on over to the DIYstruggle.com for any of the TDS creative products you've seen used in this video today. And as always, people, thank y'all so much for stopping by and hanging out with your girl. Until next time.